Alright guys, game number 10 here of our Bronze to Master series. Perhaps this was someone trying to snipe us. They don't seem too happy. We're going to have a TBT and it's going to be on Whirlwind, so I think safest ways to open TBT. You can still 1-racks expand at this level. So we are currently in Platinum League. We have a Platinum Terran opponent, I'm pretty sure. Unless my eyes deceive me. Sometimes it's hard to tell if it's a Platinum or a Silver League. But I don't see why we'd have a Silver opponent at this level now. TBT, I still think walling off is important. And we're going to go for a bio-centered style. Focus a bit more on sticking to that sort of composition setup now. So, yeah. It's like, what else do you want me to say? You know, we're just building the supply depot right now. But, gonna get a barracks at 12 supply. So, I still think you can 1-racks fast expand at this point. At 13 supply, best time to scout. So I'm going to send an SCV out to go look on all 4 bases. Of course, Whirlwind's a pretty big map. If you're the kind of person that likes meching builds, this is not the map for that. Usually just because there's a lot of space for dropping, a lot of wide open angles for attack. So it's very difficult to secure bases with just siege tanks. It's hard to have enough siege tanks to be able to deal with that. So we're going to do a 1-barracks fast expand. At 300 minerals, I'm going to send an SCV to go build it. You don't have to build it on the low ground if you're scared of Reapers. Largely, I mean, if your opponent goes for any kind of like heavy Reaper play, it can be difficult to hold it due to a low Marine count. But typically speaking... Okay, so I want to know what's going to come out of his barracks. So what I'm going to do is send my SCV over there. I'm going to start my next supply depot and then immediately go back into Marine production. So... yeah, this SCV is purely to see if he sends a Reaper, so that's why it's parked there. If you are really, really scared about possible Reaper play, you can go for a bunker before you get your additional barracks up. Sometimes you have to do this in Terran versus Protoss if you also want racks fast expand, just because it can be so difficult to deal with these sort of setups. But and I'm just going to keep this SCV here and be ready to build my next barracks. So he hasn't sent a really fast Reaper out, which makes me think that it could be a fast expand himself, or he could be doing some other kind of aggressive build. Okay, so there is a Reaper. Somehow it got past my SCV without, didn't attack my SCV. Very interesting. Well, fortunately for us, it's just a Reaper. Not too difficult to deal with a single Reaper. Possible like Reaper cheeses that you can face up against are going to be really, really difficult for someone to pull off at this level. So until you hit that Masters or High Diamond-ish, you shouldn't worry too much about your opponent doing really micro-intensive builds. So it's kind of funny. This person... Alright, well, it's whatever. Now, guys, you take your 2 gas after your barracks, of course, and then get the tech lab as soon as you can afford it. And we're gonna open up with stim. It used to be better to open up with combat shields, but the metagame has changed so much that having the faster stim is just better for defending. Okay, so he's getting a bunker now. He's got a Marine. Looks like he wants to expand. Let's look at their saturation. Still pretty good. Now, if you do scout that your opponent's going for any kind of gas play, engineering bay before factory, and you're just going to want to get a missile turret up at each base. You guys can kind of see I just have my Marines sort of spread around here. It's not a huge deal. Not too many Terran units that can threaten a bunker in the early game, so they don't have anything tanky like Zealots or Roaches. So now I'm going to get my factories basically as soon as I can afford it. It's going to be 43 supply this game. I haven't really lost any supply, so I can give a couple indicators on that. And then it's just going to be 1 missile turret per mineral line. This is mostly just to make sure that if he does go for anything like Banshees or drops, that we can at least kill the medevac or kill the Banshee. So Now saturation's looking pretty solid. As you can see here, there's a bit of a supply block. Like I said, never be afraid to use a supply drop. Ever. Ever. Unless your supply blocks will lose you games more than anything else. So, wait, your supply blocks will lose you games way more than spending money. So, it's always, 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 always better. Now that my factory is complete, I'm going to take my gas and my natural starport, and we're going to get a reactor. This looks a lot like a Terran versus Protoss opener, and it's a really good way to open. So I'm also just going to add on 2 reactors now that I have my starport coming in, because I'm going to have this extra gas geyser that will give me income. So another thing important to note, the supply depot placement around the main base is so crucial to being able to spot drops coming. As you can see, I'm not really doing any kind of follow-up scouting, but it doesn't really matter. In fact, I'm just going to send my SCV over to the tower, because what I have can hold off pretty much anything he could send to me at this point based on what he's opened with. If he sent out a siege tank, I could try to get us around. Okay, he has a marine at the tower, so I'm not even going to go take that. I could send over about 2 marines to just go take that off, but I kind of like playing this a little bit blind just so I can show you the build order preparation in terms of how you can deal with a lot of things that can come at you. So stim is done, medevac production is beginning, and the next thing we're going to do, build a tech lab on the factory. We can move into tank play. And that's going to be about it for now. We're going to take a 3rd command center as soon as we can afford it as well. This way we can, well, we want to move into a 3rd base. So the whole point of this is you want to start to get aggressive with your medevacs right around when this rolls out. But we're not going to be too aggressive in terms of frontal pressure. We're going to focus more on macroing. So I'm going to build my first tank. Good for defense. And now my first couple of medevacs are out. So I'm just going to box everything into one control group. And remember, guys, whenever you do any kind of a move out of your base, always rally your units at home. Don't rally them to your army, because if one of the units dies, you can mess up a hotkey. You can accidentally have all of your units get caught. If your opponent is any kind of counterattack set up, he can kill you. But he had that tower, so the first thing I'm going to do is go kill it. Notice, I'm barely looking at my army. It's a huge, huge, huge mistake that a lot of players make, is they look at their army all the time. So one thing I'm going to do now, before I go to attack him, I want to know if he has a 3rd base. So I'm going to stim 1 marine each. It's for each one of the bases that he could have. And we're going to go check this base here and this base here. These are the most common places for someone to have a base. At the same time, engineering bay, armory, and let's get 2 additional racks. We can move into that 5 racks play to produce a lot of marines. You can get a 2nd factory as well. And now I have the tank for defense. I know he doesn't have any 3rd base. So here's the most important part. I could try to do something to kill this guy and possibly just win the game outright, like right now. But regardless of whether or not my opponent has any units up that ramp, I'm going to be ahead of him because I'm going to have my 3rd base way faster than him, which is all that really matters. There's nothing I'm really concerned about more than having a 3rd base faster than my opponent, because I'm just going to be so economically ahead of him, because I can support now this factory production. I can support to continue to produce all of these marines. So just leave my SCVs there. Just wait. So I'm going to scan him as soon as I have another scan. And you'll notice it's like, well, this is incredibly passive, Nathan. Yeah, but anything that he does, I'm going to be able to spot. I have enough defenses at home to stop any kind of big counterattack if he wanted to drop me. And now I'm just focusing purely on building depots and making sure that I'm producing units. So 3rd base landed. Totally didn't scan there. I get a bit caught up in using mules. So because of that, if you ever want to just blind scout, I'm just going to run a marine here. He has a mine. He has a good number of marines and marauders, it looks like. So I should be a bit careful in terms of how I want to approach this. So, like I said, though, the most important thing, I'm just going to start producing a lot of tanks, because in a bio versus bio game, tanks are going to be what wins you the game. And now my armory is done. So you're going to see how basically I'm going to be able to just compound the lead that I already have. All idle SCVs I just want to send over to this 3rd base. And so my +2 armor. So this way I know I'm economically ahead of him. Now he's going to scan me. He wants to know what I have sitting outside of his base. He should recognize that he has enough to beat me in this straight up fight, at least right here. So I'm just going to continue to just try to pay attention to that. It's important to see on the minimap when he moves out. At this point I can also move up to 9 barracks or 8, depending on how much you want to focus. I like to build a lot of tanks, so I like to go up to 8 barracks in TVT. And now that I have a lot of tanks, I can move forward, and it's all about setting up these bidders of contain. Now, if you are worried about anything like ninja bases, you can just stem off a couple of marines, tell them to go run around and check them. But now I'm going to scan him. He has a good number of marines and marauders. He's got +1 attack, so he, in terms of upgrades, we're even for now, but my +2 attack is coming in. I'm going to still leave some of these units at home. And I'm going to start building some sensor towers. This is somewhat more of like a high-level-y thing to build sensor towers, but it's so useful, I think, for even lower leagues, being able to spot where your opponent's army is. I haven't been aggressive at all this entire game, but now I've got some tanks. He's even going to hit me with a Widow Mine. He's going to try to fight this, and he's going to walk right into my tank line, and it's going to A-move him, basically. And just a solid opening, and you kind of notice, you know, he got that Reaper Scout. It was okay, but what's most important is I just constantly looking. I guess this guy was Silver League. It's just about constantly looking at what you have at home. It's so much more important to focus on what you have going on at home than it is anything outside of your base. So I think that's something that a lot of people don't do terribly well. And that's game number 10 of our Bronze to Masters series.